This is gonna get recorded here. We're on. You're asking us to approve an evaluation report of Dr.
You're out of
Cohn.
order.
No, I'm not out of order. You're not the boss
gonna
in
be
here, Ed.
recording
Sorry.
anything here.
Yeah, I am.
This is an executive
We're on.
session.
Nope, we haven't said anything illegal. You're not gonna touch it.
Meeting's over. Meeting's over.
Meeting's over. You're doggone right it is.
The meeting hasn't started.
You wanna play hardball? Let's go. Absolutely.
This is an executive session.
We will discuss
This
the
is an
parameters
executive
of this
session.
evaluation, and you're not
This is-
gonna vote to ramrod this down when a minority opinion doesn't go in it. That's wrong. I know you justify everything by unjustified means, but this is not going down.
This is under executive session.
We
because
haven't said
we're-
anything about him yet. We're talking about the parameters of his evaluation and what goes on this chart. You're not gonna not include the minority remarks in here. That's not gonna happen.
You were just given this report, so I don't know how you've read it.
Because I can see that it's all positive stuff and none of the remarks I made are in there.
You just
Everybody
have-
gets to rate him with a 1 to 4 and the minority vote gets in there. There is no way that I'm gonna sign off on it
A
on this.
minority member of the board doesn't get to tell the rest of the board how to do business.
You don't get to tell me that this
Yes,
is how
the
the board
majority of the
reviewed
board
him.
does.
No,
We don't.
absolutely not.
We are not you, we are a board of directors.
No, every other evaluation in every other district, the directors get to put a number down on whether they agree with it and they get to rate him.
And-
You're not gonna
and
give
I
them a
think
glowing
obviously
review when you know that I don't agree.
we're unable to perform the duties that we have been prescribed to do, which is
Yes,
to
let's take it to the
evaluate.
press. I'm going to tell them what you guys are doing. Let's do it.
There's nothing
This
to
is
tell
an
them.
executive session, it should not be being filmed,
You're,
so.
we shouldn't be talking
I
about this in
refuse-
executive
I
session. You're
refuse-
absolutely right. We should be talking about the
refuse
parameters
that.
of this in open session. You are absolutely right, and that's why I'm taping it.
I refuse that we continue this executive
Let's,
session.
you're right. Let's not
based on,
continue.
Again, display of erratic behavior by Director Olson.
The display of the illegal behavior by you four.
You know, it's unfortunate that.
We have not agreed on the
that's our
parameters
board
of this. There is
business.
no way that you are gonna get your way on this evaluation without the public knowing what's happening. You pulled the fast one last time. It's not happening this time.
It's again a mischaracterization.
And don't you dare touch my recorder.
Is that a threat?
Yeah, is that-
Yeah, he reached for it. I said, don't you dare touch my
No, is that a
recorder.
threat?
Yeah.
Is that
I'm
a
so I'm
threat?
telling him not to.
What
What's
are
your
you gonna do about it?
definition of a threat?
Are you gonna
You know
inflict
my definition.
personal
of
harm?
No, I don't.
Physical
I
harm?
said you better not touch my recorder.
What are you gonna do? Are you gonna post something?
I'm
to
telling
your
him he's not
Facebook
gonna do
page?
it.
That's
Are you
another-
threatening me?
Another bit of slander and mistruth?
Well, since this is being recorded, I think that we will all be entitled to a copy of this recording under the under Public Records Act, so.
Yes, and I'd like a copy by tomorrow morning.
Continue.
Executive session, so we'll be back around 6.
I think we should just kind of hear from people. Should we just go kind of around the circle, and if those that are outside of the circle would like to join us, they're welcome. But just kind of go around so we can kind of hear why people are present and if there are concerns or if there are like good things happening that need to be brought to the forefront as well.
You may have heard the board is in exec session. They are coming back out for a meeting. And, while there's normally not a hearing of the public, you have a lot of valid questions and I'm hearing some misinformation. So again, it is the board that needs to address this at this point.
I'm gonna go and knock on the door, is that okay?
Yeah.
I'll be back.
She is okay. I love her. I didn't say anything bad.
Yeah, don't disrespect the president. I'm not allowed in the meeting. It's a closed meeting. When I went in, it looked like they were kind of not meeting. It didn't look very formal. A couple people were standing up here and chatting. It wasn't looking like we're around the table doing business. That's how it appeared. I'm not gonna.
I believe they're waiting.
That's how it appeared. So.
I mean, this is not just teachers, this is parents.
Okay, I'm sorry, Julie. We were discussing personnel matters. They're very private and personal, and you just busted into a room while we were discussing personnel matters. And you really can't do that. You can hear things that really are not, between an employer and employee. So,
With all due
for
respect.
one, no, with all due respect, this is a board meeting. And board members are speaking at a board meeting. And we make rules about how we deal with each other. And I'm going to have to ask you to respect those rules and not to blurt out in the middle of when someone else is supposed to be talking. Now, when I coached your child, I remember times when children would just blurt out when the coach was trying to speak. And I'm going to have to ask you to give us the same respect that I ask the children on your daughter's soccer team.
With all
gave
due
the
respect,
coaches.
y'all not giving
And
our
I'm
kids-
sorry that you are out of
No,
order too.
No, y'all
Now,
not giving our
those-
kids no respect.
No,
by
I'm not
changing
gonna,
the rules
I'm not gonna be shouted down by a member
Period.
of
Y'all
right
get ready to
now.
vote
No,
on
I'm
this
not.
right now.
I'm not gonna be
Don't
shouted
hush
down right
nobody,
now.
we vote.
So everybody should be respectful.
A person barged into our meeting unannounced and just insisted upon taking over. And that is clearly disrespectful. I was talking at the time you barged in. I was acknowledged as a person. We treat each other with respect. So I do appreciate Joe Lacey's comments. We don't just barge and talk. We raise our hand and ask our president to acknowledge us when we want to make a comment. But I certainly insist, we're not acknowledging hands tonight. We're not going to acknowledge hands. If you want to speak to anyone, wait till the meeting is adjourned.
Down to Florida, we welcome you to the Sunshine State. They're kicking back and soaking up the rays every day in Florida. I'm in Florida.
The public comments portion began with a language warning from Chairman Andy Ziegler.
We consider this boardroom an extension of the school environment, and therefore, if it's not appropriate conversation in a school, we don't consider it appropriate conversation here.
But the district says school board candidate Dean Padarakis challenged the order by using graphic language to make a point.
We have a teacher who put his phone onto the big screen and showed what the students say was his erect penis. I asked Desmond, Dr. Blackburn.
That's enough, Dean.
No, it
That's
isn't.
enough.
What is it now?
It's not appropriate.
Let's stop buying time. Let's stop buying time.
No, sorry, it's not appropriate.
What, are you kidding me? You're gonna. I have a right. I have free speech. I have not done it. I'm not going anywhere. None of us go. No, it's not time to go. It is not time to go. It's not time to go. It is not time to go. It is not time to go. I am not going anywhere. This happened to me at the Calvin Core meeting. This happened to me at the Calvin Core meeting. I'm not going to hear it again.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. This was America. Listen.
For what? Arresting me for what? I'm not allowed to stand up for myself? I thought this was America. Huh? Isn't this America? I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
I should not be silenced, and I should be given my 3 minutes to speak about that. It is your right at a public forum to be at that public forum, and if they force you out, then they're wrong. They're violating your constitutional rights.
I'm sure he would feel that way. He always feels he can speak and say whatever he wants, but I'm allowed to set the tone of the meeting, and I did. And it's purely up to me to decide whether somebody crossed that line.
Down to Florida, we welcome you to the Sunshine State. They're kicking back and soaking up the rays every day in Florida. I'm in Florida. The sun is setting over Tampa Bay.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you. Oh, you know what? Let's read it to the group.
Not right now, Ms. Montague.
He had the nerve to bring it up here.
Ms. Montague, no. We're taking public comment right now.
Louis Hedrick. That is unacceptable.
Ms. Montague, please.
You know what? You actually need to do something about that. That is unacceptable.
We're continuing with public comment.
Except for this man does not need to be in this room after what he just did.
Ms. Montague, we're going to listen to public
I would like for him to be removed.
He didn't do anything that I recognize.
He didn't offer it to me. The only reason that I know that it's up here is because it was shown to me. It is unacceptable, and I would ask that this man be removed from the meeting. He is disruptive, and he is not doing anything to help us get our work done in this meeting. He doesn't care about kids. I have 3 children in these schools, and I ask respectfully that you get up and you
Ms.
leave.
Montague, I'm the guy that has to, I'm the one that has that.
Please?
I will not do
Stand
that.
up for a fellow
I
board
will
member.
not do that. We will continue on with public comment.
Mr. Hedrick.
I would like to remove.
Wait, hold on.
There are 2 amendments to the agenda. The first amendment is that action item 5.3, approval of lobbyists for Board of Education, is being pulled, and action item 5.4, approval of legal counsel for Board of Education, is being pulled.
For those of you that want to speak, you can. If you want to speak, you can still do that. If for those of you that don't want to stay, you can go if you choose to do so. I just ask that you be quiet in the manner at which you leave, if that's all right.
So,
I'm just asking.
Mr. Kerrigan, Mr. Kerrigan, I have a quick question.
What's that?
So we've pulled the item.
That's
Have
correct.
we pulled it permanently?
No, we have not. It'll come up on another study session.
Everybody please stay.
Any additional?
Well, I have just a comment. I know that at the start of the meeting, when I asked, and this does relate to future agenda items, at the start of the meeting when it was determined that the item would be pulled regarding the attorney, and I asked, is this pulled permanently? And you said no. And I'm looking out in this audience and I'm listening to community feedback, and I feel like the community feels very strongly. And I feel like the people who come out and say that you somehow have a mandate, that the 4 reformers have a mandate. Bryce won by a statistically insignificant number. So, you know, I don't think that's a mandate. So my question is, you've now heard the community. I've heard the community, I've heard the phone calls, I've gotten the emails. I request that it does not make it onto a future agenda and that we pull it permanently.
You may make that request, Ms. Montague, but the president and the superintendent sets the agenda per board policy, and it will show back up. And there'll be ample due process. That's what you asked for. You asked for due process in our retreat yesterday, and we will do the due process. You did ask for that. We've given you the due process, and that's the process of putting it back on the agenda and going through the process.
But who do you represent?
Denise,
Who's your customer?
there is a policy within our board policy. The president and the superintendent sets that agenda. That is the policy of the board, and it will come back up. And we will set that with Mr. Scheer. That's the way it works.
I just find it interesting because you're basically telling all of these people that what they said doesn't matter.
Denise, I'm not telling these folks anything other than that we're following a process. We are following a process. There is due process that we are allowed to follow as a board, as elected officials, and that's what we're going to do.
But you've been told loud and clear. What more do you need?
Denise, there's a process. We pulled
The process has taken
pulled it
place.
off. Wait a minute. We pulled it off, and we're going to we'll have a discussion with the superintendent. That's it.
So, okay, then I have a question about the purpose of this real quick, just so that I know, because I want all of our information out on the table. And we did have a community member say, if at least we're headed toward a reform district and this is what we're going to do, then let's have it all out on the table. And I think it's fair. I want to know where we're headed. And so the question I have for you is that it's my understanding that when a district goes to a reform district, they hire an attorney, and the next thing they do is they fire their superintendent. And there is a lot of concern in this community. I've heard it over and over and over again that the
Dr.
intention
Scheer,
is...
would you please address that?
Well, at this point, of course, for a number of reasons, I don't have any concern about that. Certainly, Mr. Kerrigan has reassured me that that's not an issue, and other members of the board have indicated that too. So I would say that that's not the issue.
I'm gonna hold you to it because this is important.
I don't think that's been discussed at all either, and I would hold you accountable to the conversation that we had yesterday, which was that your biggest concern is that we didn't have ample time to discuss it. So I appreciate the comments tonight, and I took notes and am listening to the community and constituents as well. Okay. And I think the message was that if we're going to go down this road, that we need to have a discussion about it. And so I don't think that that's the message I heard. Certainly, there's a lot of opinion in the room, and I think the message we heard is we need to have a discussion about it, and that's what I think we're going to do.
Raise your hand if you're interested in having an attorney.
That's enough, Denise. That's enough. That's enough. We got to move on with the agenda. You're out of order. Item 8O, executive session. Do I have a motion to move into an executive session, please?
I move for an executive session.
Second.
We need an attorney.
Roll call, please.
For the purpose of what?
We need to...
Matter subject to negotiations pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 4E. Negotiations. That's it. It's subject matter to negotiations. That's Shannon.
Last few months, telling us that our children are failures. They say it publicly. They're below basic. They say all these things But what you have to remember is that our children are listening to you. Just the other day, we just had the induction for the National Honor Society. We had our National Signing Day where our children are going into colleges, in the military, or whatever they're doing in life. They're working hard to do that and to graduate. And to sit here, I'm trying not to lose my temper, because what you do, you can deal with your issues, you can but celebrate your successes. Because all I seem to hear is that our children are below basic, our children are failing, our children are doing so horrible, and when you hear, oh, you went to Harrisburg, it's, oh, you went to Harrisburg. But our children are working hard. So please, when they're inducted into the National Honor Society, when they're graduating, because at graduation there is a listing of all the colleges and what they're going to do after graduation. Help them celebrate that. Quit telling them that they're failures. You deal with your issues and you celebrate the successes, because remember, our children are listening.
Nobody is telling the students they are failures. You do not get that.
No, you're not. Right now, you had your chance to speak.
Then speak with the same level of respect that we did. Speak with the same level of respect that we did.
We're not calling our children failures. We're not calling our children failures. We're saying the system that they have no choice but to be forced into is failing them. It's great if we have a certain amount of kids that graduate, but 30% is not the number that we need. Listen. This is what I'm saying. These are numbers that were put out. We don't want you to think. Listen.
If I may, can we maintain our order here? Can we maintain some order?
Grace Carlson?
No.
Pam Howard?
Aye.
Lori Vista Ward?
Aye.
Bob Kerrigan?
No.
Carl Langner?
No.
Denise Montague?
Aye.
Donna Rice?
Before I vote, I want to say two things.
That's right, you have to vote. The question's been called.
No.
The motion fails, the MOU did not pass. You may not ask a question. You have not been recognized by the floor. You've not been recognized by the chair. Mr. Miller, please.
And why don't you go ahead and adjourn this meeting, and then you can...
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
So moved. This meeting is now adjourned. And once the business is complete, the meeting is over.
Way to listen to the people who you're supposed to be representing.
Welcome back.
A 5-minute recess.
The World of Thompson School District.